everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Against All Odds. And as I say at the beginning of every podcast, it's a purely selfish podcast because I like to talk to inspirational people. And today, I have got one hell of a powerhouse with me, Mr. Grant Brotherton. How are you, my lovely?
Wow, what an intro, Amy. Thanks so much. I am very humbled for you to say that. I do know that you say that on every podcast about being inspired. You only have people that's inspired on your podcast. So really humbled to be here as a guest, if that's the case.
Oh, bless you. Now, I've just been talking to you before the podcast because you've got quite a list of what's going on. So we'll start at the beginning. So we talked about you being an ex-pro boxer. When did that start for you?
So boxing, 10-year-old. I remember the school holidays coming up, school holidays now actually. So this time when I was 10, school holidays, last day of school, there was a leaflet come round everybody's desk. And it was a leaflet for the sports centre, so the local sports centre, Ashington Sports Centre. And on there was activities. One of them was boxing. So I think most of the class, if I remember rightly, most of the boys, so around 15 in the class, decided we would have a go at the boxing at the sports centre, the leisure centre. Now, out of half of the class, there was only 2 of us left on the second week. It was on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and I went every week during the school holidays, keep us out of trouble, keep us out of mischief. You know, I grew up on a council estate, and got in a lot of mischief on council estates, and I imagine some little kids still do. But yeah, it kept us out of mischief. So half of the class went. At the end of the 6 weeks, there's only 2 of us left. And I remember it was £1 a session. My mum and dad didn't have much money living in a council estate. Nobody has much money on a council estate. And I remember my mum saying, "Are you serious about this boxing? Because it's £1 a session. It's a lot of money. You know, it's £3 a week." And I had said I was. Mum took me to a boxing club, a proper boxing club, Newbiggin Boxing Club. And I remember the coach saying, my mum was asking, "How much is it?" And he said 50 pence. And I remember my mum sighing of relief, thinking it's half the price. And then he had said, "No, it's 50 pence for the week." So it went from £1 a session, you know, to £3 for 3 sessions to 50 pence for six sessions a week. And I guess that really, you know, born my love of sport and boxing. I was the only one left at Newbiggin Boxing, so I started with my best friend. We both had went from the Ashington Leisure Centre. He lasted a couple of weeks. They did a lot of sparring there. We didn't get any sparring at this leisure centre, but getting at Newbiggin Boxing, there was loads of sparring, and it's sort of the men amongst the boys sparring. And so I was the only one left, and I really took to it. You know, I made some great friends in boxing. It certainly instilled some great lessons as a kid. You know, my coach ultimately was my role model. You get heroes. I remember Nassim Hamid was my hero. And it ultimately gives a council kid a goal, a life goal to achieve something more, something better, you know, achieve something for your area. It's 12-year-old. I had my first 11-year-old. I had my first contest, and that was great having my parents there, my family, my grandma and granddad, and old friends, you know, and you got to school the next day and everybody's seen you boxing, and it's great. You know, you feel so significant in your community. And then I went on to win a first British title. So it was the first in the area, along with a friend of mine. And we both won British titles. So that was the first schoolboy national title for the club ever to exist. Wow. And ever anybody nationally in the area, Northumberland, particularly Ashington, Newbiggin, to win a national title. So you can imagine, you know, my name's almost in lights, you know, a national title. It gives you hope as a kid. You think, yeah, you know, I am going to make it. I won a second national title the year after, so now I'm double national champion. It's getting really serious. I meet Nassim Hamid, and not only did I meet my hero at the time, but I also find out that he won the same schoolboy national title as me that year. So I'm thinking, wow, I remember it was at the Copthorne Hotel at Newcastle. He was boxing at Newcastle Arena. And just thought of something there. He was boxing at Newcastle Arena, and I turned professional later in life and fought at Newcastle Arena as the chief supporting act. But anyway, I remember meeting him. He had a Mercedes convertible, as a young teenager, you're thinking, wow, this is it. I could be as big as Nassim Hamed. Then the call comes for England. I get my first England vest just on the wall here. So that was 1996 against Russia.
Right, okay.
They were tough, the Russians. They got a strange stance, and it was hard to overcome. And then I went on the box against Ireland, Denmark, and then a letter came when I was 15-year-old through the door, and I always remember it. So letter came addressed to me, Master Grant Brotherton, and it was an invite to box for England versus South Africa in South Africa. Now, this meant a lot to me because I was actually born in South Africa, believe it or not. So my mum and dad, my dad was contracted in South Africa and moved there, and I was born, as was my sister, and I came back when I was 3. So not only have I got the opportunity to box for for England against South Africa, it's in South Africa. I've never been abroad in my life. Council kid, 15-year-old, first flight, first holiday, but it's 500 quid to go. Well, that's a showstopper straight away for somebody who lives in a councillor's house, council estate. I remember taking the letter to my boxing club, and my coach, he almost put the letter in the bin, like, how on earth are we going to afford 500 quid? But my mum just didn't give up, and she went to the school to see if there's anything the school could do. And what the school did is actually, and I get emotional saying this, is they decided to do a school non-uniform day, and every kid paid 50 pence. Ultimately, that money sent me to South Africa, representing my country. I toured South Africa for 2 weeks, Johannesburg, Durban, Cape Town. What an experience, fantastic experience, sharing rooms with people from all over the country, elite sportsmen, and, the world elite sportsmen have gone on to fight for national titles, Paul Smith, world titles, Matthew Macklin's on Sky Sports, commentator now, sharing rooms with them people. It really gets you to, we'll talk about environment, and it really gets you to raise to the level of your environment. Come back from South Africa, all over the newspapers, the local press, I'm starting to get a real good name for myself, become the England captain. So, boxing, not only am I boxing for England, not only have I a triple national champion, a double national champion, but an England captain, and it's starting to get really serious. So, another letter comes through the door inviting us to the International Boxing Academy. So I'm 16, and I get invited to the International Boxing Academy, which is the first intake for boxers, so elite level boxers, boxing at a school of excellence, at an International Boxing Academy. There was a sports academy there for football, there was a judo academy there, a basketball academy, and it's a centre of excellence for sport. You do a scholarship, and again, there was money issues there with my family around and how do we subsidise this, how do we fund it. By this time, I was working at a local gym, and I had approached the gym owner to say, listen, I've got an opportunity to live at this school of excellence, but it was 50, well, it was £65 a week, but because of our income, it was subsidised to £35. The local gym owner, who I was work experience there, had said he would give me dad a part-time job on top of his full-time engineering job. So my dad took that job, and that money allowed me to go to the International Boxing Academy. And I remember the first interview for it, we were sitting with the education department, and they says to get the funding for your boxing, you have to study an educational course. Everybody's doing bricklaying, so you can as well. And I remember my dad looking at me saying, "You're not doing bricklaying. You're not going to be a bricklayer." And I was saying, "Oh, I just, I fit in with the rest of the lads, and mix about with the cement and just, arse around basically." And he had said, "No, like my son's not doing bricklaying." And I remember the education head said, "Well, he would need some GCSEs if he wants to study A levels or anything like that." And he looked at my dad like, said, "Well, yeah, he's going to have like A to C, all of his GCSEs. So not only was I looking to do a scholarship, I'm now chucked in, and I'm the only boxer out of all 21 boxers that are studying A levels. So I'm studying A levels, and they're just playing around, with bricks and not even going to the lessons and all the rest of it. But it really stood us in good stead. The coach there was really highly educated from Cambridge. He got a master's degree, and he really showed me the power of education. He instilled us that education comes first, your boxing comes second. And as a 16-year-old kid, you never think that. It's like, well, I'm going to be a world champion. I'm going to study. I don't need to study. But he really pushes down the route of studying. And whenever the Sky TV cameras would come to do the documentaries, whenever the news cameras, it would be like, get Grant Brother. And he's studying A levels. He's the apple here. Get him on the front of the camera. And it came towards the end of the scholarship. And, I'm approaching 18, 19 now. And it was a case of, at the crossroads, do you turn professional in boxing, or do you go to university? Now, my mum and dad have always instilled and always pushed us towards, you need an education to be successful in life. You can always fall back on effectively a hobby. And I almost did a deal with my parents, like, if I had went into education and then got my degree, come back to the boxing. And it seems a good idea in theory, but when young men get to university and discover drink, drugs, and women, they're never going to go back to elite level boxing.
Yeah.
One of the hardest games in the world, around the discipline, the routine, the resilience that you're afforded. And when when an 18, 19-year-old laddie goes to university, that's just not returning. So that takes us where I'm at about 22, finished university with a degree, knew that I wanted to be in the fire service, so I studied a public sector degree. And straight from university, went into the fire service, at which time I'm in the fire service, ex-England boxing captain, multiple national champion, with a degree. Now, there's not many people tick those boxes and have that motivation. And I think, as a young age, it learned us that whatever you put in at life, you get out. Whatever is difficult, you just hit it with tenacity, keep hitting it. As Ray Scott, my coach, would say, you just got to get back up, keep getting back up in life and continue. And I think that stood us with a really, really good foundation in life to start my career in the fire service. And I remember I started in 2005, and they hadn't long been off the strike. They had been through a long industrial dispute with the strikes regarding pay. And getting on the station when you had done your 17 weeks training and posted the station, there was a lot of like low morale in the fire service. Things were pretty doom and gloom. They had just come off the strike. They had been battling a Labour government, and it wasn't a nice place. And I feel as though when I was posted to the station, it was almost a case of, how can I impact and help and make life better and easier on station? Because it's a great job, but morale was low, and how can I possibly do this from a position of where I'm at? And it's obviously impossible when you're at a low level rank in the fire service, and it's very rank orientated in the fire service. So not long after I had finished my probation period and qualified as a firefighter, I decided, as high up as I possibly could, I wanted to climb that ladder. And my goal was to be a group manager before the age of 40. And I remember getting on the first rung of the ladder as a junior officer in the fire service. And I had disclosed to one of the officers in the office to say, my ambition in the fire service to be a group manager before I'm 40. And it was the only person that I had declared that to at the time. And I remember him saying to us, and he was a senior officer, had said, well, that's a real stupid goal, because what happens when you get to 40 and you're not a group manager, you're not a senior officer? And I thought, imagine having that kind of attitude in life. Imagine even having kids and instilling that kind of attitude. And I had thought to myself, and I didn't respond to him at the time, and I just was deep in thought and thought, well, imagine trying to get there, not getting there. That's fine. But imagine not trying to get there and you'll never get there. you know. So I set that goal. I was on an absolute mission to get there, and I achieved that goal at 35 years of age. So 35-year-old, the youngest on the senior leadership team, youngest group manager in the country, you know, and I still sit on that senior leadership team now. And then my life changed 2018 when the birth of my daughter. So
Hmm.
2018, some big events in my life. Two notable events. In the January, my daughter was born. And I think, you know, people with kids, particularly men, you realize you've got to grow the fuck up when you've got a
Yeah.
daughter, you know, particularly a daughter for men and, you know, children. I think it brings that additional layer of maturity into your life, and also a big responsibility. So, you know, I'm flying through life on the fast track in the fire service, not a care in the world, and then bang, you know, you've got a human being, you know, a tiny little one that looks exactly just like you, and you've almost got this weight of a shoulders on your shoulders that actually you've got another responsibility in your life. Um, Fast forward a few months and into the November, I was invited to box in America, take a fire service team in America. And we went over. So I took the team. I'm coaching in the fire service by this time, and I took the team over to America. And we were hosted dinner, a dinner called Dave Lineker, who is the chairman of Remax. So Remax is a big property company, and Dave Lineker is the chairman. He's the founder of it. He started up. He was in the army, working class kid, just like me. You know, and he's still there, Amy.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Rose a bit
So
there, we
yeah,
can edit
so
that bit out.
I so and Dave Lineker, yeah, so gets chatting to Dave and his chief executive officer Adam Contos in America. So bear in mind, I'm senior leadership team. I've achieved my goal in the fire service. I have a number of properties that I've just had a side hustle, slowly building those properties up the slow way. And I say the slow way because there is a fast way of building property and there's a slow way of building property, and it's all around education and how fast you can compound that money when you understand compound interest, return on investment, and yield. Now, I took a lot of lessons from dinner with Dave Lineker, Eddie's house. So, how many houses have you been to that's owned by billionaires? And I suggest there's nobody in my circle who's been to billionaires' houses. You know, yes, we know various millionaires, but a billionaire, come on, man, like how many billionaires do you even know, let alone have dinner with them and be at their house for hours and spend time with them and all the rest of it. And I remember speaking to Dave, and like I said, he's chief executive, who are friends on Facebook. That's me claim to fame. We're friends on Facebook.
Nice.
And I remember having a good chat with him, and he said basically he takes leaders from the public sector because they're the best leaders. They lead men and women into disaster. Adam Contos, who was his chief executive at the time, was from the police force, and he just basically threw one to me saying like, "Well, you know, what's your position in the fire service?" And I started telling him in the fire service, and I remember him looking and saying, "And you're 35 years old." And I said, "Well, not only that, I own a dozen properties, so I'm in real estate as well, Dave. You know." And hey, Adam, I've got a morning routine, and I've just started doing personal development because my daughter was born in January, and I'm just working on this. And what's your morning routine? This is my morning routine, and started swapping habits. And the chief exec there had said, Bran, I need you to read a book by Darren Hardy called The Compound Effect.
Mm.
And when you've read it, I need you to join his program called Better Every Day. And yeah, I love your morning routine. And clearly you've got into personal development because your daughter was born, and I had told him I needed to mature, I needed to change. I definitely know at the time and knew at the time that I needed to change my ways. I definitely needed to mature as a man and a dad. And he posed the question to us, said, you work very hard in the fire service. You've said you work at least 60 hours a week. Imagine if you were to take those 60 hours and put that into business how much of an impact and legacy you could create, particularly for your daughter. Now, Dave showed us one of his number of vehicles that he had in his house, and guns and everything else, this big billionaire's house. And he showed us a Land Rover that had been used in the military. And he told us he had bought it for $1 million. And I was thinking, like, $1 million? Like, you joking me? It's just a Land Rover. But he said, I bought it for $1 million and I toured it around America. And I raised $10 million for charity, for
Wow.
the charitable fund for injured veterans. And I was thinking, wow, that's absolutely amazing. Like, what a guy. Like, this is getting even better,
Yeah.
And then he mentioned the word philanthropy. And I was thinking, like, what is this word? A council kid from Ashton, philanthropist. Who is he? What is it? What does it mean? And a few other lessons that him and Adam were discussing and talked around. And I remember coming back to UK and going to work, and I spoke to the chief, and he said, "How was it? Particularly, how was it at Dave Lineker's house?" And they took you to the game and all the rest of it. And I remember saying, "I'm not sure if my future lies in the fire service chief, because he's lighted an ignition within me to think, actually, is my time better off leading a business, leading the community, leading my family to something bigger and better?" And and he says, "Oh, don't be speaking like that. I need you in the fire service." And I said, "Well, my daughter has been born, and I never want my daughter to live in the scarcity environment that I lived in a council
Yeah.
estate in my house." So shortly after that, inspired by the billionaire in America, that I started Elise Properties, which is named after my daughter, so Maya Elise. And I decided I would start that company. So I started it in 2019. It's 5 years next month. And I would start that company in her name as a legacy for her, so that she would never miss an opportunity through finance. And I got the opportunity to go to Cambridge when I was 18. And again, the money stopped us, that prevented us. I went there for a week. I was hosted at Cambridge. And imagine, like, I would have been a Cambridge Blue, and no doubt I would have been the captain of the team, and what kind of doors that would have opened me for a council kid from Ashton, being a Cambridge Blue captain. And I never wanted that for my daughter. I never wanted her to be restricted in any opportunity in life through finance, because let's face it, there's more money in the world now than there's ever been. What's the stat? 40% of money was printed in the last 4 years. So why should our kids, any kids in this country, any kid in the world, miss opportunities through finance? And I just think there's an injustice there in the world that, everybody in their life should achieve their potential. And I say potential because potential comes from sport in a working class environment, particularly in a council estate. And so, yeah, so that brings us to the beginning of the company. So I started Elise Properties, at which time I was running alongside quite an intense time at work, where I had raised a legal challenge against a very powerful individual in the service, so a chief officer of VHR. Things were getting kind of meaty, it wasn't nice. And effectively, I was afforded the opportunity to have some time away from the fire service in 2019 in September, through events completely out of my control. And at which time I had still had that ignition from America. I went through some turmoil around alcohol and sedating, and who do I want to be, and what's happening with my career and the fire service. And bang, once the pity party stopped, and it's back to, I know Dax Moy always says your brain's a pattern recognition machine. What happens in difficult times? Well, you've got to get back up. You got to continue, hit it with tenacity. And what you get out of life, what you put in, you get out. So started the scale of business. I started documenting on social media what I was doing. Like, hi, I'm Grant. I'm from Ashton, a council kid, grew up here. I own my council house. Now I still own it. It's rented out. I have a number of properties, but this property company and this property company is going to be built to create a legacy for me and my family. And I absolutely exploded that company, you know, and I had a goal to get 4 million property by the age of 40. I surpassed that goal by about 1.1 million, so it was like 5.5 million at the age of 40, and had built an almost massive business where then I had decided, you know, what do I want in my life? Do I want to be working in a fire service? Do I want to be working in property? Do I want to create this property company? And what have I created this for? And I went on the course, and you'll know him, Joel Stone, the
Yeah,
master.
yeah.
He said it's something that always sticks with us. And I'm not sure if he knew we were having a bit of a counselling session, but it was on an artificial course for Facebook ads and ads around social media. And I had said, why is it you do what you do? And I had said, I create great homes for the local people in Northumberland, and provide a great service in Northumberland. And he said, and why is that? And I was thinking, yeah, why have I built this? And I said, well, you know, a great home, foundation of life starts with a great home, you know, and like I said, growing up in a council estate, your environment matters. And I think if I can provide a great home to local people in my community, which I'm really passionate about, then it gives them the foundations of a good life. You know, housing life in at home starts with a good house. And if I can provide, and I mean these houses, you know, I put magnet kitchens in, magnet bathrooms, they were a really high standard. I really upped the level. My mission was to rid all of the rogue landlords across Ashington and the southeast of Northumberland, provide the best service I possibly could, where they would have to increase their level of service to compete with me. The beauty of it is I didn't need the money. I didn't need any income. You know, I've got some old school landlords who are living off the income. I didn't need the money. I'm still in the fire service. I've still got my job in the fire
Yeah.
service. So I'm kind of, you know, way ahead. I'm streets ahead. I've thrown myself in education. I understand yield. I understand return on investment. I'm a master at compound interest. And I started discussing, you know, on social media, actually, I can give other investors a real high percentage on their money for doing nothing. And I remember speaking to an investor in Scotland, and he said, wait a minute, so you can give me that return on my money, but I don't need to own the property. I can just have the money. And I said, well, yeah, it's a loan into the company, and it's secured by a first charge and secured by personal guaranteed via solicitor and stuff. And he had said, I remember watching him, he said, so you mean I get just the return and I don't need to own the property, own the headache, have a tenant in my life, and I can have all of that income? And I said, yeah, absolutely. How much do you want to invest? And he went, well, can I start with 100 grand? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, and if that works, I've got another 100, you know, and if that works, I've got another 50. And if that works, I've got 750, and there's £1,000,000. So I was thinking, wow, okay, so now we're talking. So ultimately in that business, I raised £1,000,000 private cash. I put it to work. I'm an expert in adding values to properties. So everybody keeps saying, how did you go from 0 to £5 million in property in 3 years with none of your own money? And I said, well, it was quite easy, really. All I did was add value. And I think
Yeah.
if people, you know, in life, right across any spectrum of any industry, any career, anything you do, if you add value to an asset, if you add value to somebody's life, if you solve a problem and add a value, you're gonna exchange that value. And if that value of exchange is money, then you're gonna get money. It's as simple as that. So, you know, I was buying the worst houses in decent areas, making them the best houses in the same areas. So, you know, you could drive along the street and you would know which houses are owned by Grant Brotherton's company because they would be rendered, you know, that have black windows or grey windows. They would be the best houses in this street. And then, of course, once I've increased the value of that asset, the mortgage company then puts a mortgage on it. I get the money back, give back the private investors. And I had lots of private investors. I was just documenting on social media, and all I was doing is like, this is the house I bought. This is what I bought it for. This is how much I'm spending on it. This is the end value. This is what I'm renting it for. And by doing that, I've brought in excess of about £10 million of investment to my
Wow.
local area. And
Yeah.
that's just by showcasing the area on social media. So, you know, we've got a lot of um, wealthy southern investors who really like the northeast for some of the returns that they get. And of course, they see this kid from Asher and keep documenting it. They want to have a look at him. Who is he? So they put him into Google, and actually, oh, he's a senior fire officer. Oh, he used to be a boxer. Oh, he's opened a gym here. Oh, he's opened a boxing gym there. Oh, he's feeding in kids who are off the streets, etc. And it gives you automatic, authority and credibility that way. I had a bit of a wobble when I was 40. I got to 40, and I'm not sure, I'm not even sure if you're 40 yet, Amy, but if you get to 40 and you realize that you've at least halfway through your life, it was a big number for me. I almost thought, like, what is it all about? And coming back to Joel's Stone, and I guess I didn't finish that story. And why is that? And I wanted to create a great home for local people, and I wanted a great environment, someone to grow up in, and I didn't want anybody to feel as though the opportunity around them missed them by having, a house. I cannot do anything with their income, but I can provide them a great home. And if that brings the foundations for a kid to achieve, their potential through education or sport, then I've contributed to that common cause. And I really dug deep when I was 14. I almost thought about, like, what's life all about? Why have I built this? So, my intention was to build it as a legacy for my daughter. I'd probably only need five properties for that. 7 properties, maybe. So why the
Yeah.
fuck have I got 70? And I really had a real difficult time in me 40 when I was 40. So I'm coming to 42 now. And it was like, okay, then. So Joel had posed the question, and I came away with it after our little mini counseling session about, okay, then, so why is that? And I think I dug all the way back, and it's a very deep rooted process. Okay, so why is that? I think he uses it 7 times to get really down to it. Okay, then, so why did you do that? And ultimately, it came back to me to deciding that, okay, then, so I've built this legacy for my daughter so that she never has to miss an opportunity through finance. But how selfish is that? Because you've lived in a whole community who sent you to South Africa, who paid their 50 pence to contribute for you to achieve the lifestyle that you've got, and some of the achievements in your life. So what about them in your community? You're providing a great service and a great home, but what else and what bigger could I do? And I almost moved to, like, coming back to my boxing days is like, what's the goal? How big is the ambition? And I just thought, yeah, okay, then. So I know the name of my dad's dad, who's my granddad, and I know his dad's name, but I don't know any name beyond that.
Yeah.
So how could I create a legacy that would live longer than me? I've got one daughter, and that's the only children that I'll have. So I've got one daughter. So my family name, we've all got daughters, will die when I die. So there'll be no Brotherton legacy left. So how can I create a legacy that'll last longer than that? How can I create impact that'll just not impact my daughter's life, but impact my local community? Do I need, a property company that's valued at millions of pounds? Absolutely not. I've got a great income from the fire service. I've got a great pension when I'm 60, if they give us it when I'm 60, because it keeps changing the goalposts, the bastards. And effectively, I had a taste of wealth and money. I've spent a lot of time in Dubai. I've been hosted by billionaires. I've been hosted by multi-millionaires on yachts. And I realized that actually the money that you're chasing isn't actually what you need. It's about what impact you can have when you're here, and importantly, what impact do you have when you're not here? So I decided last year, so summer last year, I decided that actually I don't need these millions in an SPV in the property. And my daughter absolutely won't need them. She's flourishing. I've got enough assets that I personally own. I've got a good job. So decided that that company, that special purpose vehicle, Elise Properties, will be sold when I'm 60 years old. And that money will go into a foundation, probably a Grant Brotherton Foundation, if not the Elise Brotherton Foundation. And that money, I will teach my daughter how to compound money and compound interest and return on investment. yield. I've already got her learning ChatGPT. She's 6. You know, she's hands on and she's doing it. And we're going to Disney World next month, and when we come back, I'll be showing her how to invest in an ISA into Disney stocks, because no doubt she'll love Disney. By which time, and I'll really teach her all of the lessons around what I've learned about money, what I've learned about business, and effectively she'll never need any of that money in the company. She will be able to direct that charity, and the ultimate goal in the charity will be 1 million kids in Ashington, so that's where I'm from,
Yeah.
to be impacted through sport. They must be of school age. The charity will pay for any kid from Ashington to go to Oxbridge University, so Oxford or Cambridge. If they want to go there, that my charity will pay for that. I have declared this on social media. Who, you know, I've had hundreds of calls. Take me off my mum, dad. Are you crazy? Are you mental? Are you sure you've done the numbers? And I'm like, yeah, man, I don't need that money. Neither will my daughter. You know, and if that money, which will be millions by the time it matures, through compound interest, will go into the charitable fund, and it will impact millions. Now, you know, a little inspiration that I had on that. So there's a local fund in Northumberland called the Richard Henry Holmes Fund. And I started asking some questions, and they'd said, "But Grant, you do realise he's dead. He's been dead for like 30 years or so. He's been dead years." And I was thinking, wow, that's amazing.
That's impressive, right?
It's so impressive. And I'm thinking, you know, I have got a little bit of an ego to feel as well. Like, imagine, you know, my daughter's kids and their kids and their kids, you know, being the chairperson of that charity, to say, oh, it was my great granddad that started this, and we just used the money to compound. And, you know, the offshot of that was that it must fund kids in Ashington. And, you know, there's a lot of charitable work that I've done in Ashington, and I've sent, you know, darts, would you believe it? A young girl playing darts in the national championships, which I funded. And it's like, darts, what do you think of darts when you were a kid? But, like, you know, neat tennis players up in Ashington, from the deprived area that we live in. But yeah, so I've funded a lot of boxers, and I'm funding still from your own money, you know, kids in sport. And I don't want anybody to miss an opportunity. And if I can impact Ashington, and no doubt, you know, as the business grows and there's more private enterprise and interest comes into the business, and I build it bigger, then I will move to Northumberland. So, you know, that vision of impacting 1 million kids in Ashington over a generational lifetime. I'm not just talking my lifetime. I'm talking that 300, 400, 500 years time, when me, you know, my kids' kids will be to read about this and say, like, yeah, that was our family heritage, and it was Grant Brotherton. And ultimately, I'm just looking to create, you know, a legacy beyond my lifetime. So, so the almost, you know, suffering that I had put on myself, and the pressure of getting 40 and not reaching that, you know, it was a real difficult, tough time for us. You know, people would celebrate, oh, you've got a multi-million-pound business, you've got 2 businesses, you're senior officer in the fire service, you've got a lovely family, you're married with a 6-year-old, a real supportive family around you, you know, I've got a sister. And it was like, I had everything, but I had nothing. And I
So you were
felt
feeling fulfilled then?
I didn't feel fulfilled at all. And I just, you know, thinking of, like, you know, you wanted, as a dream as a kid, you know, I remember the, you know, them like flowers, what you blow, you make a wish and blow. I would remember catching them and just praying that I would be a millionaire. And, you know, getting to 40 and being a millionaire and having a great job and a family, I was thinking, like, is this it?
That's it,
Like,
and people will look at you funny because, like I say, from the outside, you've done this, you've managed to hit this goal, this goal, this goal. But I do believe there is a point in time where you just go, oh, and like you reflect, and then it's like, am I going down the right road? It's quite a confusing time, and I do believe if you don't get it at 40, you will get it at some point in your life.
If you didn't get a 40, you're gonna get a 50, aren't you? But
luckily, exactly.
Luckily, I got it at 40, you know, and it was a real difficult period for my life, and I had to really dig deep and look at the values that I had as a person, as a man, and, you know, what's going to get us through this. you know, ultimately, why am I having this meltdown?
Yeah.
You know, because I have achieved X, Y, and Z, but like I said, it just didn't meet the expectations of what I had set. And you know, back to the Joel Stone is what and why is that? But you know, I've got a bigger purpose now. I think men lack purpose, you know, they lack ambition, they lack goal setting, and they're the foundations that came from me boxing, goal setting, ambition, you know, 90-day goals, seasonal boxing, goals for that. And I
Yeah,
think ultimately you need to just sit down and focus and what is the end? And I always say start with the end in mind. But of course, I start with the end in mind. Okay, then I want to be a group manager before I'm 40. I get there to 35 and think, I've got that now. What next? Right, okay, I want to earn 4 million before I'm 40 in property. Right, okay, I got there and I've won 5.5. What next? You need to keep, you know, moving the goalposts and creating a bigger why and a bigger goal, you know, and a bigger
yeah.
outcome.
Do you know
Uh,
what? It's when you say about men needing purpose, I think you had that at a young age as well, which probably spurred you on and why a lot of men struggle, because you had that discipline and that goal kind of mindset very early on.
very early on, I mean, you know, as a disciplined international boxer and elite level sportsman, you know, we see it as these professional footballers. You know,
Mm,
when their life ends in the football stratosphere, they've gone downhill because they've lost that purpose. You know, they've lost that
yeah, yeah.
out, they've lost that significance. But again, they've got the foundations there. They just need to revert back to them and dig deep, you know, and it takes, you know, some coaching and some teasing out of you to actually, you've got the foundations, you've got the discipline, you've got the goal setting, you've got that ambition, you've got the tenacity to overcome anything, you know, as a young council kid and them values of honor and respect, you've got everything lined up for you, but it's just about, you know, engaging that and using it. And ultimately, for me, it's about how big I can create this charity. Because if I can impact Ashen with the money that I've got now, if I can impact Northumberland with a bigger pot, you know, and give other investors, you know, higher returns than what they do owning property in London or down south. And I
Do you know
just
what
think
I love
like,
about your mindset though? It's like from a very young age, you've gone for that delayed gratification, which is quite rare at a young age. And it's quite rare to carry on your adulthood with it, especially in a world where we love instant gratification. But you're very forward thinking. Go on,
yes,
yeah, that's
oh, totally. I mean, like people say to me, "Oh, what's your best advice on property?" And I'll say, "Have a 10-year plan." And I can see the deflate in them, thinking,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
10 years, 10-year plan. I read, you know, watched a video on YouTube saying you could be a millionaire within a year. I'm like, no, no, no.
Mm,
Have a 10-year plan. And
yeah.
it's like I can see the ambition just drain out of some people. And it's about, no, it's not. You're not going to become a millionaire in a year. You know, it's going to take hard yards for at least a decade to have a 10-year plan. And you're right, delayed gratification. You know, we live in a world now where everything's instant. I spend a lot of time in Dubai. You can go on Amazon, you have something delivered in 4 hours. You know, it's
Exactly.
crazy.
Yeah.
And
Everything you think of. Yeah,
that's the
yeah.
world
Yeah.
that we're breeding. And I think, you know, particularly property, it attracts a lot of a lot of people who think they're going to be an overnight success and make millions within a year, and it just doesn't happen. So a 10-year plan, but adjusting that plan every year. So I'm
I've
kind of looking
seen
for
that
that.
quite. Yeah, I've seen that a lot of times because I was actually a estate agent for 12 years.
Wow,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
I hear the state agents.
yeah, I was a estate agent for 12 years until 2013 when I became self-employed. But yeah, the amount of people that you would see that come into the office, I've got this big dream of being an investor, buy a property, have a dodgy time with a tenant, and then that's it. They're done. Like they've not thought it through, and then they've cut their dream short. It happened quite a lot.
Yes, it does. It happens loads. You know, our mum and dad dies and they've inherited the house and they
Yeah, yeah,
didn't want to sell it to split the 50-50 with their brother or sister. So I know we'll rent it out. We'll become like property investors. And you know, a year down the line, the house is trashed and it's not being looked after and it hasn't got the legal certificates on it. And then it's like, we should have sold this when mum and dad died. And I'm like, yeah, you should have because you're accidental landlords and you shouldn't be in the service industry,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know.
It definitely takes a special kind of person, and it needs somebody that knows what they're doing as well, and not a lot of people do.
Oh, it does. You know, you need an expert, a trusted source on the ground. We've got loads of, down south investors investing in the northeast, but that they haven't got any credible sources on the ground, and they're just taking the estate agent's word for it. And let's face it, an estate agent's just there to sell properties and rent them out. You know, they haven't
Yeah,
got they haven't got a finger in the pond in that area. They're not walking the local communities. I mean, I was speaking to somebody yesterday, and he was like, "Why don't you do holiday lets?" And I said, "Because I need to walk the streets of my communities. And do you think if
yeah,
I'm gonna rent a house out for 3 months and leave it empty for 9 months just to get more money in my back pocket, my community is gonna be happy with that? Like, absolutely not. But it's
yeah,
all right for foreign money coming in and buying holiday lets and all the rest of it, and that basically depriving a house or a home to somebody in that local community,
yeah. And I think that's what makes you different. You see the bigger picture with everything. Yeah,
Um, but some people just haven't got a moral compass, Amy. They just put money in and expect to get the money out, and not forgetting, there's a service to provide. And if that's the case, just put the money in the stock market.
just think all this probably not had happened if you hadn't started boxing all them years ago, mate.
It wouldn't, and we're often talk about. Well, I talk about graduation events in your life, and we've all had them, and we've all got them, and no doubt we've got more to come. And none of those graduation events in my life would have been overcome with such success if it hadn't have been for boxing. That foundations that actually you get out of your training, what you put into it. Hard
Yeah,
work pays off. You need to have big ambition. You need to have an end goal. You need to set 90-day targets on your seasons. You need to be strict with your diet. You need to put in your body good food for good outputs. If none of that had happened without that leaflet coming, 10-year-old at school, dare I say it, I would have been like some of my friends at school who are in jail, who are drug addicts, who some of them aren't even alive through addiction. That could have been me, other
that's
than the
it.
opportunity that I had through sport.
And that's it. I mean, you mentioned about environment earlier, because I'm a big believer in who you are around absolutely matters. And you were kind of catapulted into a world that was completely different. But at a young age, were you a little bit like, oh, I'm a bit out with depth here, like these people are? Or did you just go with it and just love every minute of it?
Oh, there was no holding us back. There was
I
absolutely no
love
holding us
that.
back. Give any council kid a little bit of confidence and a little bit of reassurance that they can achieve it. And they're very confident people, they don't lack any confidence. But, the proof's in the pudding. Clearly, as a double national champion, you have to walk the walk as long as, talk the talk. But it was great. I was getting local sponsorship from the local places. The local gym wanted us to work there on my work experience. And a little story I'll touch on, actually. So I was 15, work experience, worked at the gym. It was a great environment for a 15-year-old, full of testosterone men. Back in the 90s would have been, where men are men and big testosterone, really hardcore, but lovely men, lovely. And, I remember the manager there teaching us, like, got to be nice to everybody and you've got to know their name. And I was thinking, how can I remember like 300 people's names, And I would watch him, and every person that walked through that door, he would know their name. So it was like, so I'm on work experience, getting to know their names, getting in. He's like, you've got to be nice, and what you do is, talk to men in here and get lessons from them, but then build your own book. They've got their book. You've got to build your book with certain pages from certain advice and all the rest of it. And I've touched on, he gave me dad a job, and that sent us to the boxing academy. Gave me a Saturday job, and I was the man. I was the local coach at the boxing at the gym. And for me 40th, and as part of me approaching Wobble, I decided I need something big for me 40th. I need something. I need a trophy. I need something. I need this achievement. What more could I ask for than that local gym, which provided me dad a job, which gave me a job and some really good foundation lessons. I remember a member there gave us £100 when I left for the boxing academy to buy some new trainers and some new kit and everything. And some of the lessons that was instilled as me and a teenager at the gym working there until I went to university at 19-year-old. So I bought the gym, and
Oh wow!
so I won the building there. So like I remember as a kid watching the hairdressers. So the owner built a big hairdressers on the side of it. He used the car park to build a big hairdressers, and his sister is a hairdresser there, and she's been there for like 25 years. And I watched that being built as a kid, and I've got some photographs and stuff. And I always had a painting of the big Oasis building, and I was like, that's where my first job was, and a lot of me, values as a kid and growing up. And now I own it. And the hairdressers, and it's like, what kind of bragging rights is that in the year?
I love that. Good birthday present, mate. Good birthday
So
present.
I'm not sure what I'm going to buy when I'm 50, but that was me 40th birthday.
I can't wait to see. I love that. So my final question is what I ask everybody, and it makes everybody feel uncomfortable. It's Javino's fault. Tell me 3 good things about yourself.
Ooh, some really good things. That is a difficult one. Have I not just talked about good things for the last 5 minutes?
You know what? This is what people do, right? They come and tell me everything they do, but when I say, right, okay, tell me 3 good things about yourself, they automatically go,
Well, I think I've got to mention that, one good thing is I'm a dad. And I think most people, bring up the fact that they're a dad, but I think it gave me, I lost my granddad, who was my #1 fan. And ultimately, when I lost my granddad, my daughter was about 1 or 2, and I had changed the direction about, okay, my granddad was my hero. He was my #1 fan. Now I ultimately need to replace that #1 fan as my daughter. So, being a dad and that responsibility to create me being her #1 fan, and that's a big responsibility. I didn't get much more interesting than that, to be honest. So born in South Africa, that's a quite interesting fact, because we sat on a course last week and you had to find 2 differences between the person next to you. Nobody could find it, and I was like, well, this is easy, because I was born in South Africa and the lad was born in Newcastle. So I'm trying to think like a third thing about is like, come on, I've talked about loads of good things here. I mean, you've put us right on the spot there.
I think one of your biggest kind of great things about you is your level of discipline and drive. Like, I've never known anybody to go, right, I want to do this like 10, 15 years down the line, and then hit it extremely early and then carry on to do like most people just stay there, but you're right, what can I do next? What can I do next? So I think your level of discipline and drive is, I've never seen it like that before, ever.
And I mean, it's it's almost a personality defect in me that I cannot sit still. I've got to have a bigger why. I've got to have a bigger goal, a bigger ambition, because the devil makes work for idle hands, and I've been there. I've been to the depths of hell. I've battled with suicidal thoughts. And I've been through counselling to say, how many times have you thought about suicide? And I was like, well, there's every day for the last 6 months count. Because that's where I'm at. And it's about, I think, that hitting on life's events with tenacity. And I always tell people, if you can match resilience with tenacity, and you can dig deep in the hard times, then you'll flourish in the easy ones. And, with good comes bad. And I think, with light comes dark. And you've got to remember that, with the good comes the bad. And I've always think, when things are going great, okay, what's about to hit us from the side that I'm not looking for? What's about to hit us? What bad news am I going to get? And I think ultimately I'm prepared for anything that'll hit us in life, to go back to my roots, to think, okay, then if the brain is a pattern recognition machine, how did I overcome that there? And some difficult times that I've had, with addiction, with alcoholism, and I don't drink now. And it's not about the pattern. Okay, then, well, I got pissed and I had a bottle of whiskey every day for a month, so I'll just do that. Actually, that pattern didn't work. I'll not fucking do that. I'll get back into the gym. You know, I'm on a challenge at the minute, 75 hard, where I'm
Yeah, I was
training
gonna ask
every
you
day.
about that. How's that going?
Up at 5:30 every single day, training at 6 o'clock every single day, training twice a day, drinking a gallon of water, reading 10 pages. It's that good for me that I've decided when the challenge ends, which is 2 weeks' time, I'm just going to ingrain most of them habits in my daily life, and that is me. That
Yeah.
is me. It's not. I'm not on 75 hard. Just I get up at 5:30 every day. I train at the gym at 6 o'clock every single day, and I drink as much water as I possibly can, which at the minute's a gallon, which is 8 pints. You know, and I think some of the lessons what I'm getting from that, Amy, is like my daughter. So she sleeps over with me in the bed on a Sunday night. We'll have dad and daughter sleep over, and she'll say, "Dad, when are we reading 10 pages?" So she reads a book of 10
Yeah.
pages because I'm reading 10 pages, you know. And she'll say, like, I'll drink 8 glasses of water because you've got to drink 8 pints. So she's watching and learning, and it's about, you know, we talked about environment before, about the environment that she's in, and she's seeing her dad doing a challenge. You know, asked her for a lick of ice cream on Sunday, and she said, "Well, Dad, you can't have any sugar as part of your 75 hard challenge. So you can't have a lick of this ice cream." And I'm thinking, well, that's just dairy, you know, just give us a lick of ice cream. But no, she wouldn't be having it. And she was like, that's sugar. So I think about, you know, what patterns does your brain recognize that that was successful? Because drinking a bottle of whiskey every day for a month, which is what I was doing, you know, when I had a difficult time at work, was exactly what I was doing. And clearly that didn't work. It worked for the time that you were pissed, you know, and clearly when you were sober, and I probably wasn't sober for a month of that, things, as we know, are just a whole lot worse, you know. So it's about just digging deep in what worked for you last time, bigger goals, you know, bigger ambition. And I think, you know, I touched on it there. Okay, then I wanted to impact my daughter's life. Well, actually, that's not big enough. Well, actually, I want to impact every kid in Ashington over the generational lifetime when I die. Okay, then, well, that might not be big enough. What happens if I could impact the whole of Northumberland for school kids, you know? And I think
Mm.
ultimately, you know, I'm just one uber high net worth individual away from that. And ultimately, that's kind of what the dream is and the goal is, to actually, if I can make money work better than what Southern investors are doing, better than pension funds are earning, better than their pension funds earning them, and they can put it into my business, and I can create massive social impacts through across my communities. And then ultimately, my money from that at the end is going to go on into the generational lifetime of charity. Like, who doesn't want to be part of that? Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? I've got
Actually, you know
like,
what? You've got one a hell of an amazing mission. Right? I love it.
it's going to be awesome, you know. I mean, I've got like over 10,000 followers on LinkedIn, and I've got people messaging us saying, these property coaches, like, why are you posting about, you know, how you structure a business? Why are you posting how you add value? Why are you doing this? We're selling this for like £1,000 a month mentorship for like 12 months, 12 grand a year. And I'm thinking, well, more fool the people, because if they just follow me on LinkedIn, I'll post on a daily basis telling everybody how you do it, you know. And we know that, you know, there's a difference between having the knowledge and implementing the knowledge. Like, I've got the
Yeah.
balls to go out and implement that knowledge. I'll post it daily on LinkedIn and tell everybody how you do it, as well as, you know, my struggles around adversity that I've faced. I post about property, and like I said, I've got hundreds of messages from saying, like, why are you telling people this? We're selling why don't you do mentorship? Why don't you do coaching? I'm like, well, because I couldn't be asked. I could just post it and give it for free every single day, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. So if people, so you've just mentioned you're on LinkedIn. Are there any other platforms on where people can find you?
Well, I was going to say I'm on Facebook, but I have just deleted the app on Facebook last week. Little goal of mine. So I am on Facebook, and I'll guess what I've done on Facebook is logged in on my desktop here, and then deleted the app from my phone. So I'm
Yeah.
like, if I'm doing business and stuff, I'll log into Facebook on my desktop, but I'm just not having it on my phone anymore. So yeah, Facebook. I'm not very active on Instagram, but I'm on there. LinkedIn, I'm posting every single day. I'll give hints and tips on life, on business. You know, being a captain of England, professional mixed martial artists. and ultimately property. You know, that's where my skills lie. So I post there every day, and I will help anybody on there. So I get lots of messages from various people. On my walk in the morning, I'm getting 10,000 steps in with my little French bulldog. I always reply to them via voice notes. So I'm on my walk and I'll voice note back, you know, and I'll spend kind of a minute with each message to say, this is what you need to do, this is how you should structure it, and actually why you're in properly and why, you know, what's the outcome. Because I think, again, coming back to like start with the end in mind. Some people get into property for the wrong reasons, you know, and if they're getting into it for money, then just go and learn how to compound money somewhere else, particularly the stock market. You know, you'll get decent returns on the stock market, but if you've got any money, then you're not going to get anywhere in property unless you've got, you know, a credible background of skills to sell.
Yeah, I love that. Do you know what, Grant? You've been the most amazing guest. I know you're a very busy man, so thank you so much for taking the time out.
You're very welcome.
Great to chat with you. So I recommend that you find Grant online and definitely hit him up for any advice, because like you've seen him here today, is like this in person as well, and I can't wait to see what you do next, mate. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.